Courtney, you were trying to wrap up a thought, so go ahead.
I was saying that I loved how you worded that, you're supposed to give and serve from, you can't serve from an empty reservoir. You're supposed to serve from your overflow. And I love the way you worded that. It's so true. If you have, it's like I don't know if you're familiar with Shel Silverstein. He's probably on the banned list now, but The Giving Tree. Are you familiar with The Giving Tree, the book? Oh, okay. It's a great. I'm half joking, but I think he is on the banned list now, which is tragic. They're banning all the childhood books. But he wrote this book about the Giving Tree, and it was about this big, beautiful tree, and this kid who kept taking from the tree, and the tree just wanted to keep giving and giving until finally the tree was, I'm gonna cry, and the tree was this little stump, and there was nothing left to give. And metaphor is that, no matter how much you want to give, you can't give till you're depleted. You're supposed to give from, the surplus, the tree gives the fruits, which are replenishable, and then they keep growing, right? So,
right. That is so true. And I do feel that way. I mean, if you have nothing to give, you can't, it's just difficult. Like you were saying about the tree, it ended up being a stump because you just have nothing else to give. So if you're not good, then you can't give to everyone else. And that's, it starts at the mindset level. And a lot of times we're like, we don't want to go away from these people, or we don't want to do this because we don't want people to feel a certain kind of way. But if you're not good, you can't give to other people. So sometimes you have to go away. And my family and the people that are around me, you have to have a good crew around you. Those that are around me, they understand that sometimes when I go into my shell, and because I'm an extrovert, everybody is like, they have the misconception that extroverts don't need to be energized because, we get our energy through people, right? But that's not always true. You have to go in and you have to shut it down sometimes so you can reboot and reset. So, yeah.
And it's because you're energized by external stimulation. That's what being an extrovert means. But you can't, it's like anything, you can't be constantly stimulated, right? There gets to a point where you're overstimulated because you are stimulated externally. So there's times where you need to recharge. You're like, okay, like a battery can't just keep pumping, right? They need to be plugged in sometimes. And that's the same thing. And it's the same for introverts. When they spend too much time going inward, they get overstimulated. And I know that seems like an oxymoron. People don't really understand how that works. But they get stimulated inward, and there gets to be a point where they need to recharge by connecting with others. And so that is people who have a misconception about how that works.
One thing I wanted to mention, Lanora, is that, we spend a good amount of time talking about psychology and mindset and personal development on this podcast. And with the RAS project now, being 6 years in running, and Courtney also joining the team about 4 months ago, I want to say 5 months ago, roughly, when we started doing this live version, was an amazing companion, to the podcast. And you were just talking about it, ironically enough. You said it, Lanora. You said, surround yourself with a good crew. And I'm one of those people that, being bullied all through high school, being an immigrant also, that have faced a lot of adversity myself. And Courtney has an amazing story herself. In fact, she has beat all odds of just being alive herself. And so we are huge admirers of that, and in fact, personally, also as an entrepreneur, and this is something that we cover on this podcast, is that I don't think people understand that, you gotta be at full tank. You gotta be at full tank, because if you can't operate at full tank, like you said, you've got nothing to give. And this is something that I personally struggled with for years, because very much like you, Lanora, I wanted to create impact in the world. I still want to, and I feel like my life is just getting started to actually create that impact. But here's the thing. Before you can create impact, you got to have something to give. You got to have some accomplishments. You've got to have a foundation. You've got something to build. So I had to spend time building some shit so I can give away some shit, because and thank you, Courtney, too, as well, sharing that story about the book. I believe I'm gonna have to look that up because that's an amazing story. But
If you can still
yes.
get it, but yeah.
What's that?
If you can still get it, yeah, you should, and you should read it to your children.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
And,
great
and
book.
as a father and as a husband too, Lenora, that's something that, I always try to be the better version of myself, the best version of myself, and make sure that, like you said, is just that, how can I keep the tank full? And let's face it, when you're wearing multiple hats, this as an entrepreneur running a business, is that when you're wearing multiple hats, is let's just say that one thing's going to limp, or more than one. So how do you, my question to you is, just to continue the convo, is how do you every day, when you strive for the things that, to be a better version of yourself, a woman of God, right, to pursue, to try to fulfill, your mission, like, what drives you every day? Like, besides, I know Courtney talked about gratitude, but is there anything else that you get up every day and like, you know what, that's my driving factor, that's what fuels me? And what is that?
So basically, you're saying, what's my why? Everybody has to
Yeah.
have a why.
Right.
Something has to
Right.
drive you, right?
Right.
And ironically enough, my why is my family, but the person that continues to lift me and keep me floating is my grandmother, and she's deceased now, right? But there are things that I wanted to do when she was here that I wasn't able to do. So it's like I can still do those things because she can still see me. And so I push and push, and it's like I still want to make her proud, right?
Yeah.
Another part of that too is, and Courtney, you've opened up the door to say it's okay for us to cry on this podcast, and I'm not gonna
Yes.
cry. One thing about me is I am a real person, and so a lot like Courtney, I will cry. Part of that is also because I still I still desire to have that relationship with my mother and father, and so we continue to work and try to, you feel like if you work, that things will be okay, that it'll work out.
Yeah.
And that's a misconception that we have too, with with whoever you feel like God is to you, right? That's a misconception, because with
Yeah.
God, you don't have to work for his love. You don't have to put in that work. The work, the love is freely given to you. You just have to receive it. And a lot of times we look at God as our we look at God and perceive God to be what we have here on earth. So if I look at God in that way, I would say, well, my mom and my dad didn't want me, so God didn't want me either, right? So just constantly working on those different relationships. So those are some things that drive me too, because at some point, I feel like, my parents are going to get, old, and at some point they're going to need me. And I want to still have that, I don't want to have a calloused heart. I still want to be loving and receiving to be able to serve them, because they are my parents. That's how I got here. So.
What's so ironic about that, Lenora, and I want Courtney to jump in here because she's probably feeling, is that there's a lot of similarity to also Courtney's story a little bit, is because I think you said your parents didn't necessarily want you, but you kind of embraced that and realized that, through God, that he wanted you to be here. And, Courtney, feel free to share, just a little bit about your story, because, I think you beat all the odds too of basically, being told that, well, just find a nice institution to live in the rest of your life. But, and we haven't gotten into the fitness stuff, but like you completely prove the entire society in the world wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah. I would say that, I know Ivan said we didn't hop into the fitness stuff, but I always say one of the things I love about fitness is it really is, most people get into it for superficial reasons, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think, as human beings, we should want to put our best package forward in every way, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And how great is it that, something superficial can motivate us to want to strive for something that's so much deeper. And I think that's
Well, when you look good, you feel good, you know.
There's absolutely truth in that, but I think where I was going with it is that most people start with that, but they end up that's enough. That's not enough for sustainability. It's not enough to keep people working that hard. And the more the further you go on your fitness journey, the actual harder it gets, not easier. It actually gets harder. So you need something deeper to keep you there, to keep you pushing. And what I love about it is that what I realize is that people go on a personal development journey with it. And that's really, so people who really are passionate about fitness, I find, are very solid people. There's good and bad everywhere, but like for the most part, I tend to see really solid people who, understand work ethic, who know who they are as people, know what drives them. And they understand that nothing worth having comes easily, because I don't care how talented you are, you're never going to be an Olympic athlete by sitting on the couch. It doesn't matter how many gifts you were blessed with. You still need to use them. You need to hone them. And so Ivan wanted me to share a little bit about my personal story. I was born with congenital rubella. My mom had the German measles during first trimester of pregnancy. So I was born with several challenges and complications. I'm, to give you the Cliff Notes version, I'm blind in one eye. I lateral hearing needs. I learned how to speak by reading lips because I didn't get hearing aids till I was almost 6 years old. I had heart surgery when I was a year old. I was born with hypotonic limbs. So like the opposite of hypertrophy is hypotonia. The muscles didn't develop. I had fine graphic motor impairment. My growth was stunted. My parents are actually really tall. I was missing 10 teeth. There's all sorts of challenges. And they told my mom the best she could hope is to find a nice institution for me to spend my life. So all this to say, where this, probably resonates for you is I feel I'm more spiritual than I am religious, but I feel very strongly that my spirit, my soul, whatever it is that resonates for the audience listening, whether it's God, whether it's the universe, but somehow my spirit wants to be here from conception. I have been fighting, and I always feel that way. I feel very strongly that I was meant to be here. I have something to contribute. And, for me personally, my why is to give back, that I was blessed. I think the first podcast I ever did with Ivan, I messed up. I said 1 in 4 trillion, but it's 1 in 400 trillion chance of being born. People think that, it's just so easy to, as women, like you spend your whole life, I think, being told, like, have to worry about getting pregnant, right? It's actually not that easy. You have like 3 days out of the month where that's actually possible. Sorry, guys. But this is just biology. This is facts. It's not like, every day, every night is like, game on. It's not like that. It's actually, this is this miracle that human beings are born. And so for me, it's this tremendous sense of gratitude that I get to have these struggles. I was talking when we were rebooting, I was talking to Ivan about like the things that, I'm struggling, like I have a lot of work on my plate and a lot of, little challenges. And he was like, well, if you're not working, you're not growing. But it's not just that. I feel blessed that I have these problems. I mean, they're so minor compared to, some of the things that other people struggle with. And it really is all about your perspective. And this is a really fascinating thing. There have been studies done where people were offered to trade, what they see as their biggest detriment or challenge, whatever label you want to give it, and trade with someone else. And something like 99% of people would still keep their baggage. You know what? It's theirs. You have no idea what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes. And, most people couldn't. Most people couldn't. There's a saying, and as I said, I'm not particularly religious, but I am spiritual, but I love this, and I do think this is true. God gives you what you can handle.
Absolutely.
And so I think, it's our job, it's incumbent upon us to take those challenges and to show him and lead by example for others that we can handle those challenges and we can rise to the occasion and that we are better and stronger for it.
Right. I believe that our pain, definitely, I believe that our pain has purpose. And we need to actually, like you said, jump in there and we need to do it. I mean, I believe that we don't go through the things that we go through only for ourselves. We go through it to help other people, and that's how they say, turn your test into a testimony. You have to be able to tell people, that what you've gone through, and it will help someone else. The Bible says that we're overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. So if we don't go through it, then we won't have that word to be able to help and encourage someone else, and we're only going through it because God knows that we can make it out, right? God knows that and he knows that we'll be able to tell somebody, because some people go through stuff and they're so ashamed and they're hurting. And I'm dealing with some of that currently, some things that I've gone through, as far as especially with the divorce and stuff. I wouldn't talk about it for the longest because I never wanted a divorce. You don't go in a marriage saying I'm getting a divorce if things don't work.
One would hope, but I don't think that's true today. But
it's not like we're gonna break up like we're girlfriend and boyfriend. No, I didn't get married to say that, if you make me mad, I'm gonna get a divorce. I wanted to work through it and fight through it and stuff like that. And that's, you have to have all three aligned, meaning God and the two people, right? They have to be aligned, and it just didn't work out that way. And so my heart was broken. And do I just stop living at that point? I have a whole lot of love to give. So I'm never going to date again. I'm never going to go out. And for a long time, I was like that. So I just recently, in about the last year, said, okay, I think I can get out there again. But no, it's horrible.
Yeah. I wanted to jump in real quick, Lanora.
Sorry, I just want to add this really quickly, just for the people who may not be super religious. That I personally feel that it's not always that your pain. I don't necessarily think your pain has purpose. I think that we can give it purpose. It can be the key to our purpose. And the thing is, whether you're religious or not, we as human beings were endowed with free will, and that to me is a divine gift, that we have free will, and so we can choose whether or not we want to give purpose to that pain and turn it into something that has meaning and value for both ourselves and for others. So.
One thing I wanted to jump in real quick. First of all, I want to say thank you, both of you, for that segment right there, because that was about like the most succinct alignment of the universe. I think just that both you resonated with that synergy. I love that when you were talking about spirituality also. And I'm just blessed to have both of you here, Lanora, you and Courtenay. And we get really, really deep into these kinds of conversations also. And we're very different, in terms of the podcast, because we do allow people like you, Lanora, to come on and share your story, and when you were talking about going through a divorce, I'm someone who was divorced. In fact, I lived through 10 years of someone who every single day almost told me that I was a failure. And so, that was a very toxic relationship, but what you were saying, I think it was an excerpt from the Bible, and I'll probably butchered it, is that you have to go through that. You have to experience that. People don't understand that adversity. And I just pushed out a post actually last night that, your failures are the stepping stones to success. That the bad things that happen to you, the adversity, the struggles, the challenges, everything, you were meant to go through those things. You were meant to go through them, to defy them, because if you don't, then that's ultimately where it's a test of worthiness, in a sense, is that, go ahead.
So it was something that you said there. You said that you were meant to go through it. And basically what I pull from the word of that is all things work together. Yeah. All things, the good, the bad, the ugly, all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and who are called according to your purpose, right? So everything is not going to be good all the time. That's just not life, right? Okay? Because even if you don't cause those things to happen, you may come in contact with someone else. Nobody goes out today and say, I'm going to have a wreck today. Nobody says that. Somebody just happens to, they have things going on and they're not thinking, they're not paying attention. So all things work together. You can jump out the car and you can act a fool or whatever, or you can say, you know what, you may be having a bad day. I'm having a bad day. Let's switch information so we can go ahead and go and release the traffic on this freeway, right? And everyone else won't be mad, right? So it's all about perception and how you handle it. So I agree with you, Ivan.
Churchill said that success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it. That is it.
Yeah,
Right?
that is, that's really, well, the reason I commented on that too is, Lenore, is because I think when I asked you earlier about what's the driving factor behind everything that you do, and you mentioned your grandmother, yes, I think that's a strong sense of purpose of why you're doing what you're doing, and that's extremely important. But I think the spirituality also, and again, just to touch upon this, is whether you're spiritual or not, or religious or not, is just that I think a why, a purpose, something that you strive towards has to be there, because
Yeah.
there's too many people, I think, as an entrepreneur, that over the last 25 years that I have met, that I feel like after I've gotten to know them, is like I could tell how empty they were inside, and that they were doing things for superficial reasons. Like most entrepreneurs actually start businesses because they think that they're going to get rich doing that. Believe it or not, they think that they're going to start a business because they're going to make a pile of money, and by making a pile of money, that's going to solve all your problems, or it's going to make you happier. And I'll tell you what, the best entrepreneurs that I have ever met are the ones that felt wholly inside. And that is the key message I think that
most people, entrepreneur or not.
Exactly. No, that's an excellent point. And I think, Lanora, is because I know in your bio also, when you share, is that that is one of those things that that I think you spent a long time finding out. And I think the adversity that you went through also with the divorce and stuff. And congratulations on getting out there and putting yourself out there again, because I've been there. And most people will say I'm crazy because I met my wife 11 years ago on Match.com. My second wife. Yes, 11 years ago. Most people will say, you're freaking crazy, man, sharing your info on Match.com. Like, well, duh, that's how people meet nowadays.
Well, ironically, it's funny that you would say that. I was just speaking to a group of girlfriends. I went to her bridal shower on Saturday, and they all were saying that you need to get on the internet. You need to get on a dating site. You need to. And I'm like, nah, I'm a little bit more, I like to touch and see, and I don't want to get catfished, right? so I'm not quite there yet. So
I know, Lenora, that resonates for me very much. And I also feel like people have such a different perception of me online than they do in person. And actually not even just online. I've found this just, when people first meet me, and this might be true for all people, but I think it's especially true for me. And I have a couple of theories on why, and some of it does have to do with my being visually and hearing impaired. So I think I come across in a way where people if they don't get that and they don't really understand it, they have this perception of me because of the way I'm interacting with them, because I may miss things, So I find that until people really get to know me, they don't really understand me. And that goes, both ways. Like they have this perception of me where they're, they are interested, like they, but then they get to know me. They're kind of like, I'm really intense. And Natalie Portman had this quote. She says that what did she say? Smart men don't love smart women as much as smart women love smart men. And it's kind of true, it's sad, but it is kind of true. And I'm very intense, I'm very cerebral, I'm very intellectual, I'm very passionate, and, obviously I love fitness and movement as well. But I find that, it takes men kind of have this perception of like, when they see me online, they think I'm like this light, fluffy kind of, and then they meet me in person, they're like, whoa, this was more than I bargained for.
It's funny that you say that, and everything that you're explaining and everything, like I totally get it and totally understand it. And I bet you're wondering why, because my cousin is just like you. She's just like you. She's visually impaired in one eye. She has hearing aids, and absolutely, she learned to speak sign language and everything when she was 5 years old. And she went to when she was absolutely. And she and I are like this. That's my third sister.
So there's a reason. Okay, so ladies, there's a reason that all of us are on here today. Lanora, you sharing your story, Courtenay, you also being here, And I was actually reading through. So one of the questions that I ask everyone, the books for the podcast is there something specific you'd like to discuss? And your answer, Lenora, was that you can do anything. Your body can do far more than ever thought it could do. So that you can do anything. I love the word anything simply because that indicates of the level of positivity, optimism, like Courtney said, fortitude as well that you have. And honestly, if you have that at your core, in your heart, and you truly believe that, you can accomplish anything.
You
I'm
can
a firm
accomplish
believer of that.
anything. You can do anything that you set your heart to do. You know, a lot of people are like, well, and I make fun of this because I was talking to one of my really, really good friends I went to school with, and he's like, I want this type of woman. I want this and that. And I was like, and you can have exactly that. You can have exactly, you can have anything you want. You put your mind to it, you can work towards that. Of course, you're not going to be able to go in the gym and throw up, 300 pounds today. But if you work towards that, then you can do 300 pounds. Like,
I can do it. No,
hey, have you been trying that? Have you been working towards that?
I've been working towards it, but you made a valid point and the reason I laughed at it and raised my hand is because I was that stupid moron who thought I could walk in and like bench 250 pounds or something, or like
gross.
right. That was the misconception, though, that we were talking about earlier. Is that unless, and you made a very good point, Lenore, is that unless you work towards it, you're not going to be able to accomplish it. And I think most people think that I'm going to show up into the gym, which, like you said, Courtney, is like most people do fitness for the wrong reasons, right? They go in like, oh, I'm just going to live crazy weight. Nah, dude, you're going to break your back doing that. Is what you're going to do.
And you're going to break your ego. And you're going to break your ego.
Check your ego. And I have to say, I'm a little bit more, I guess, realistic in my view. I don't believe you can do anything. I think as human beings, we are not, for those of you who are religious, we're not God. We're not perfect. We are limited. We are flawed, but we are capable of so much more than we often allow ourselves and believe. And I think that with hard work, determination, vision, I think that we are absolutely capable of tremendous things, and usually things that we never thought were possible. So,
correct. And a lot of times when I say anything, that's exactly what I mean. We limit ourselves, we limit ourselves. And one of my favorite movies is the movie Limitless. I've looked at that movie at least 13 times because we are limitless, but we put a cap on what we think we can do. And when I talk about that your body can do far more than you ever thought it could do, I never thought that I could do the things that I do too. And I was in 2 branches of the military. I couldn't do a pull-up. I could run. I did a marathon and everything. The 26 miles wasn't the problem. The last 0.2 was an issue. Like, where is the finish line, right? But it all starts in the mind. Like, you can, I honestly feel like whatever it is that you want to do, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. You write it down, write the vision and make it plain, because there will, and you guys will see that, and I'm sure you've noticed it by now, that I vet my life by the word. And so that's interwoven in my life. But you write it down, you make it plain. So if you talk to someone about it, they may be able to help you to accomplish it. So you write those goals down, you talk to people about it, you put it out to the atmosphere. I firmly believe that the world will conspire to help you get it. You are a co-author with God for your life, and you put it out there, and you will. I do believe that you can have what you want.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Ladies, and I want to leave it on that high note, actually. Lenora, thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful.
Thank
But in respect of time, and being Monday, of course, because we know that it feels like the sky's falling down on Mondays. At least I know it feels like for me. But
with the technology stuff that we had going on.
Oh,
too.
right.
Yeah.
But before we sign off, Lenora, first of all, thank you for sharing your story. And I personally enjoyed the conversation very much. and everything that you shared. And very happy for you and everything that you've done. And I think things are just getting started for you with your new business also. Also last year during one of the most difficult times that we've had in recent history. But before we sign off, please tell everybody, listeners, watchers also, where can they find you on the interwebs?
They can find me on any social site at Fitness by Nori. Fitness by Nori. I do have personal pages. Of course, my name is Lanora Wyatt, but Fitness by Nori on everything: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Clubhouse, everything. Fitness by Nori. And I also, of course, have the workout class. Like I said, anyone here in Dallas, the Total Body Experience. Anybody here in Dallas, 3711 West Camp Wisdom, on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8, and on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m.
I'm actually going to be swinging by, I think in April at some point, going to Houston, and this might be a road trip. So might have to kind of veer off the beaten path, so to speak, and stop by Dallas because I know a few other people in the area and have to stop by and see you. But Courtenay, did you have anything to add before we wrap up?
No, it was such a pleasure. I truly enjoyed this. Yeah.
I'm here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Lanora, thank you so much. Courtenay, as always, absolute pleasure. And ladies, hope you have an amazing day. I know you're going to crush it. Thank you for both of you for your time today. And Lanora, thank you for sharing your story with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Happy Monday.